Hey guys, and down here this is going to be my chapter review to My Hero Academia or Boku no Hero Academia 270 Inheritance. Now this was a really solid chapter. We got two or three different things going on, a whole bunch of things to talk about. Let's get right down to it. It's gonna be insane. With the end with Deku, when he's looking down, he's like, oh shit, he's coming. I'm just like, oh, such a beautiful chapter. It's gonna be amazing moving forward. So how does it start off? So we see President Mike dragging away Dr. Ujiko. Really what he's trying to do here is, and he pretty much says it pretty blatantly, which is the Nomu are under your command. They're still going outside. They're still going apeshit outside. I need you to go out and bring them to a halt. I need you to command them to stop. So what he does is he tells Exilus, the other eye laser hero, he's like, you take care of Shigaraki. I'm going to go take care of the high ends. We got this sorted. We see Shigaraki lying basically face down in the ground, maybe face up, and what Exilus notices is that another machine is still actually operating, so the electricity is still flowing through it. I think what Horikoshi was trying to show here was the electricity is still running through these wires, it's still running through these cables, machines are still operating, electricity is still in the area, it's still operational. I think that might be the word. So we see President Mike dragging away once again Dr. Ujiko, and Ujiko decides to kind of give him a little bit of a history lesson here. He's like, 70 years ago the world mocked me and my theory. We already know about this theory, the paranormal singularity theory. For those of you who are unaware, the paranormal singularity theory in My Hero Academia is about how as every new generation of person is born, they receive a blended quirk. So they'll receive a quirk which is the product of their mother and their father's quirk. So Bakugo will receive the product of his mother and father's quirk. Ochako will receive the blend of her mother and her father's quirk. They'll receive some element of a blended quirk, and as they continue to go on, genetically speaking, each quirk will become more and more complex and more kind of powerful until it's going to get to a point where the body won't have enough time to physically adapt to keep up with the adaptations that the quirks themselves are going through. So people are going to have quirks which are overpowered and they can't control them. So quirks are going to result in basically a lack of control. These quirks are going to be too complex for people to control, and their bodies won't be able to take them. So he's talking about that same theory, which is a theory that he coined, the paranormal singularity theory, and he's telling President Mike about it. He's like, in those days people were struggling anyway and they didn't want to hear about my theory. And President Mike's like, actually nowadays we call that the quirk singularity theory. And the guy who coined that phrase initially, the guy who gave birth to that idea, he discussed it a while ago, and they said he died about a few years later. In fact, he'd have to be 120 years old now if he was still alive. And it turns out that person, the person who made that theory, is in fact Dr. Ujiko. And he talks about how he was ostracized for coming up with that theory, but the person who was interested and the only person who was happy with him and who wanted him to continue his research was actually All For One. And the reason for that is pretty obvious. All For One has a quirk where he can take people's quirks from them and utilize them for himself, or give them to someone else who can then utilize multiple quirks. And for him, in kind of like a selfish manner, obviously it's All For One, he wanted to know, okay, if having these more complex quirks, if having multiple quirks would cause me any harm physically, if my body can't keep up with it, I need Ujiko. From All For One's perspective, he needed Ujiko to research that. How do we combat that? How do I make myself more physically ready to accept multiple quirks, accept more complex quirks? What do I need to do? So it was in his best interest to actually employ Ujiko, to take in Ujiko, and to see what they could do together. So Ujiko obviously worships him as a god, but we find out a second thing here apart from just that, which is kind of diving deeper into All For One's reason for taking in Ujiko. But Ujiko has a quirk himself, or had a quirk himself, but still kind of has it. And his quirk, what its purpose actually is what its effect is, it doubles his lifespan while sacrificing his physical mobility. And I think we've seen this before. Ujiko was like kind of going around in that kind of machine, I'm pretty sure, with the kind of machine he was sat in, and it had this like three legs either side, I think it was. So he's been sacrificing his own physical mobility in order to extend his life force, which is why he's been alive for the last 120 years. And it's this same quirk which he gave, or he offered to All For One, and All For One took that quirk, and that's the reason why All For One has been alive for so long as well. Another thing to make mention of here is the Doctor doesn't actually have his original quirk. All For One duplicated that quirk through the use of another quirk, and Ujiko has the duplicate. All For One has the original quirk. So we're going to come back to that because there's kind of a similar thing that goes on between Shigaraki and All for One. So then the third thing here, that was kind of a big thing. Everyone was going apeshit in the comments. President Mike is being told by Dr. Ujiko, he's like, actually, you're Kurogiri's friend. Kurogiri being what was his name? Shirakumo. I've forgotten his name or his first name. I think it's Obaro Shirakumo, I think it was. But basically, one of the three friends that were President Mike, Aizawa, and then Shirakumo. So he's like, oh, you're Kurogiri's friend, right? Back then, we were actually trying to get Erasure instead, which is Aizawa's quirk. So it turns out, I don't know the backstory behind this. I think it's in Vigilantes, and people in the comments are going apeshit. But there was some sort of event where Shirakumo was targeted and he was killed, and it was his quirk that was taken in by All for One. But the person who they were actually after, and the quirk that they were looking for, was Eraserheads, was Aizawa's quirk, Erasure. So all the while through this, President Mike's just looking at Ujiko, and he's like, I think what we get from his perspective is how unforgivable Ujiko is. He's just purely evil. There is no way he's able to be forgiven. He's just a truly revolting and fearsome man. So that kind of wraps up that scene. We then go into Horikoshi on an acid trip. So this scene focuses on Shigaraki and his internal kind of psyche, the trip he's going through, and coming to grips with the power that he's been given, and then coming to grips and confirming the path that he's going to take. Is it going to be the path of a villain, or is he gonna kind of step back a little bit, look at it and go, no, I'm not gonna become a complete villain. I'm not gonna give myself to All for One. So we see this amazing double spread with his rubble, kind of showing, I think, the inner turmoil within his mind, all these conflicting ideas. Is this what I really want to do? Is this where I'm going? At least that's how I see it. I didn't really think he was conflicted, but you see all these hands reaching towards Shigaraki as he's walking through this internal kind of destruction. I think it's more around destruction rather than inner turmoil. I'll take that back. But you see Shigaraki, and his hair is weird. It looks pixelated when we see it the first time, like when we see his face for the first time. But then he's talking to Hana, his sister, and his hair looks really well drawn. So I'm not sure it's Horikoshi's kind of art style, but it does look weird the first panel where we see his eyes, and he's there asking, where am I? Like, what the hell is all this stuff? And Hana apologizes to him. The first person he sees, and there's also someone actually made mention of this on Reddit, the first person he murdered was his sister Hana, and she apologizes for telling on him. She's like, our dad said all that stuff, he did all that stuff, but I'm sorry, I'm still on your side, Tenko. I didn't mean to tell on you. And what I thought was quite nice here was Shigaraki turns around and he's just like, yeah, whatever, that stuff doesn't matter, and he's smiling and he's kind of rubbing his head. So he's not being dismissive here. He's not saying, oh, that doesn't matter anymore, I don't believe you. He's kind of forgiven her. He's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't matter no more. That's cool. We're beyond that. We're past that. So he's not being dismissive per se. He's kind of being accepting. I don't know what the word is. He's being accepting. And then who do we get? We get the second person he murdered, his mother, and they all address him as Tenko, by the way, which is his actual name. I think it was Tenko Shimura as opposed to oh my god, I've forgotten his name. But his mother is just there saying, Tenko, do you still want to be a hero? So she's reminding him, I think, in this inner turmoil kind of thing. Not even inner turmoil, just revisiting the key things that he had in his mind as a child, and really the things that he's trying to let go of as he moves towards his adoption of this All for One being that symbol of terror. So she's reminding him, I'll mention this while we're here. This is very reminiscent of the vestiges that our boy Deku was going through. So he gets to see all of the previous users of One for All, and how basically they can educate him as to how they use it, anything he needs to know about it, all that type of stuff. That looks to be where that's going. Whereas for All for One, it's all of these people that he murdered in the past, which is surprising, but also the people that are his family. Apart from Nana, we'll get to that. But they all seem to be kind of holding on to him, symbolically saying, we're the last dregs of your goodness. Please don't go down that path. So it's a really, really weird kind of thing where he's not being educated. He's not being kind of guided as to how to use his power. It's more in the sense of if you were fans of Naruto, when you see Naruto going, I think it was 8 tails for the first time, and he's against Pain, and his father comes up out of the seal, and he's there, and he kind of calms Naruto down. He replaces the seal. It's that exact same thing. Rather than actually guiding him, it's more, don't go down that path. They're trying to stop him from doing something that he'll regret, or that he could regret. And his mom is like very, very nurturing. You've rubbed your eyes all ragged, all that type of stuff. It'll only keep getting itchier if you keep scratching, kind of. And he reverts to his child form here, which was really weird for me. He reverts into Tenko, and he says, "I'm okay now, Mom," referring to, you know, the eyes don't bother him anymore. The itch isn't bothering him anymore. Almost as if saying, you know, I've already made my decision. This itchiness, this quirk that I've got, that's not the issue anymore. And where it really seems to turn is when his father comes back and is like, "Tenko, did you sneak into my study?" And you can see Shimura, that was his name. Was it? I'm getting so confused. It's Tenko Shimura, and then it was something Shigaraki. Was it him? Let me see, man. I gotta search this up. Yeah, Tomura Shigaraki. So it's Tomura Shigaraki, and it was Tenko Shimura, I think it was. But as his father addresses him and shouts out, "Tenko, did you sneak into my study?" You see his hair actually turning white again, and he gets that little demonic grin. And that's the point where I'm just like, okay, so his mother and his sister, they were kind of, you know, he's very calm around them. They were kind of reminding him of the good times. Good times. And as soon as his father came, that figure of abuse, that's the thing that turns him back into from Tenko Shimura into Himura Shigaraki. And he touches his father's gigantic hand, decays him instantly. His hair's gone completely white again, and then he sees he's transformed back into his teenage self, and he's looking over at All For One, and All For One is saying, "Tomura, come to me now." And he's looking awesome. We see the 75% status, and you just see Shigaraki just walking straight towards All For One, is it without a care in the world. He's just walking straight towards, I think, what is being kind of symbolized here as his source of power, the origin of his power being All For One. What we learn here is that Shigaraki actually has the original All For One quirk. All For One gave him the original quirk. He duplicated it. He kept the duplicate for himself, and he gave Shigaraki the original quirk. So I'm not sure what that's going to entail in the future. Does that mean that Shigaraki has a more powerful strain of the quirk? Being the original quirk, is it more powerful? Is it longer lasting? What is the difference between an original and a duplicate quirk? Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. I think All For One is just kind of going at it from the angle of purity and that kind of Aryan mentality, in the sense of, I'll give him the actual quirk. I'll give him the original, the number one quirk, the pure strain, and I'll keep the duplicate. But I'm not sure if there's any advantage over having a duplicate over the original quirk. And once again, we see Shigaraki's family, and this one was a solid actually image here. We see Hana, we see Shigaraki's mom, we see his grandparents. They're grabbing him, his mom around his throat from the back, his grandparents around his tricep and forearm, and his sister around his wrist. And that's actually, I think those are the exact same hand placements Shigaraki has when he's wearing all of his hands. And then you see his father sprout out of All For One's stomach, and his hand goes around Shigaraki's face. So that was the hand that was around his face. We already knew that because he would always say father or something like that. And then there's a hand at the back of his head which Nana is holding on to. Now, I don't believe for a second that all of these hands that Shigaraki was wearing when we first saw him are actually the hands of his family and of Nana. I don't think that. I think he's been manipulated into believing that they are. It's kind of more of a symbolic thing. These are the hands of his family. They calm him down. They make him feel as if his family is still with him, but they're not actually the hands of his family. It's just the placement of it and the fact that the hands are there. So from the back, Nana's holding him, and she says, "Don't ever forget," I think suggesting, don't forget who you are, don't forget who you've come from, and don't forget who you can be. But Shigaraki, he just thinks back on he thinks back on it. There's a figure here that looks like Deku. I'm not sure who it is. It might be his sister. I don't know who it is. It might even be himself. But he's thinking back on that. He squints his eyes. He's just like, enough. And he just obliterates everyone behind him. And you see Nana looking over at him kind of in disappointment as she's withering away, as she's kind of crumbling. And he just kind of looks. He doesn't even look back. As he walks into All For One, he just says, "Don't reject who I am." Kind of, once again, that symbolism of rejecting the goodness, rejecting the last dregs of goodness he had, the hero that he had within him, that his mother made mention of. You wanted to be a hero. Do you not remember that? And him just kind of looking back, feeling Nana holding his head, and she's saying, "Don't forget all of these things. Don't forget the goodness that you have in you. Don't forget the hero that you wanted to be. Don't forget who I am. Don't forget who All For One is. Don't forget our enmity." All of that stuff. and he just completely makes his decision at this point. I think he'd already made his decision, but this is kind of the first time we get to see it from his psychological perspective. So it's really well done, and this review's probably gone on way longer than it should have. But the fact that he just kind of shrugs them off, decays them, and he's walking into All for One's outstretched arms, and he's like, don't reject who I am. So they're saying don't forget who you are, and he's saying don't reject who I've become. Don't reject who I am right now. So he's just completely disregarded what they've said. We then see next to Exilus, as we escape this psychological world, there's this huge cable, this electrical cable that's just letting out loose charges of electricity. It sends a huge volt through the water along the ground, which Shigaraki is actually within, and it kind of defibrillates him, jerking him back into the world of the living. Exilus is just there. Exilus is gonna die. He is so dead. Like, there's no hope for Exilus. But we then see, as Shigaraki is being jerked back into the land of the living, we see the kids from classes 1A and classes 1B, they're evacuating people, and you just see Deku with his head down, absolutely shitting his pants, and all he says is, he's coming. He says that twice. He's sweating now, not quite sweating buckets. I think we're gonna see that this coming chapter. But I think he thinks he can sense All for One, as in the scarred face, enemy of All Might, enemy of Nana, enemy of all the previous or One for All users. But who he can actually sense is Shigaraki. That's going to be an issue, because I think we have to get some sort of confrontation here of Deku seeing Shigaraki for the first time with All for One, seeing that he's not going to identify that he has the original quirk, but just seeing that he has that quirk, seeing that the person he's sensing now isn't actually All for One, it's his enemy, it's his generation's kind of All for One of the One for All versus All for One enmity. So that's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see that. But also, what people were talking about almost endlessly was all of the pro heroes, all of the best heroes are currently gathered around Shigaraki, who we now know has All for One. So this is going to be kind of like an all-you-can-eat buffet, is what everyone is pretty much saying. Everyone on Reddit was saying the same thing. All-you-can-eat buffet is the word, or the phrase. But if he decides, I assume he's not going to be jacking people's quirks left, right, and center, because he needs to learn how to do that, unless he just already has the knowledge of how to do that, which I'd call a little bit of bullshit on. If he did it like on one person and then didn't really quite know how he did it, I'd kind of get that. But if he's just taking people's quirks left, right, and center, I'd be annoyed about that. But the fact that there are all these heroes, especially the fact that there's Aizawa there, who Dr. Ujiko literally says this chapter, actually we were going for his quirk. And if that comes full circle and Shigaraki sees him and he's like, you've got a really problematic quirk, I'm going to take that. Especially because Aizawa has already encountered Shigaraki, has already fought against Shigaraki, has already nullified his quirk. I think that would be amazing, to just see him kind of trying to extract that quirk from Aizawa. Maybe Endeavor comes in between, pulls out Aizawa, says, we got to get the hell out of here. But yeah, I think this is going to be absolutely insane moving forward. Let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. I think I've overrun as it is. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I will see you guys hopefully on Sunday when I release my One Piece review. Hopefully, it might even no, One Piece ain't coming out. It's gonna be it's gonna be My Hero. So I'll see you guys in a bit.